Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday's program of Local Views, brought to you by Perez Art Museum, Miami. My name is Samantha Oakey, and I'm a mixed media visual artist. I'm also a teaching artist at Perez Art Museum, and I'm really excited to be here right now, streaming to everybody that is watching. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm super hearts racing, but I'm very happy to have this opportunity, and I want to, before I forget, give a big thank you to the whole education department, especially Anita and Miss Marie Vickles, for just all their work that they've done for me, for the other teaching artists, for the museum programs that everyone enjoys. Thank you so much for rooting for me and supporting me and helping me develop professionally and as an artist. And thank you for everyone watching. I said that already. I'm just very happy. I never thought I'd get an opportunity like this to talk about my work with everyone, especially with the museum that I work for. So really, I'm glowing. So, okay, let's get started. I'm here in my home studio. I live in Shenandoah. It's a neighborhood between Little Havana to the north. I've got Coconut Grove in the south. There's the Gables in the west, Brickell in the east. It's a little suburb that not a lot of people seem to know about. And it doesn't really feel like a suburb, but it also doesn't really feel like it's very part of Miami. Like, I'm very close to downtown. I'm actually 3 miles from the museum. So often I bike or I'll take the trolley or a mix of both. But sometimes I'll go on a walk, which I have been doing a lot during the quarantine. And different times of day, whether it's raining, shine, you get bored and you just it's a beautiful neighborhood to walk through as well. And I'm super happy to be living here. I rent with my husband, and this is my landlord's beautiful property. This is my patio, which is my home studio. And here I've got some stuff I've been working on this spring, especially during quarantine. And here's pretty much where everything happens, the magic and my cleaning supplies. I paint, I draw, I collage, and I'm a printmaker as well. And I'm trying to get my home studio to have the capability to print because I miss printing and I haven't really done much of that in a while. I have tried. I have some photos of my home studio, different configurations that I've laid out, my easel, I've laid out the whole printing area. I've got the Birin, I have the rollers, I have water, to dampen the paper, stuff to dry the paper. I have a way to spread the ink. Like on this IKEA table that we built, I've been trying to make the most of this very small space that we have. I don't even know if this is like 10 feet by 10 feet. It's not a lot, but there's a couple reasons that I work here mainly for my practice and why I don't have a studio. And so I'll be getting into that. I do want to mention really quick, since I am outside here at home, if there's like a car that goes by or a plane, that's part of the ambience. And I hope that you'll excuse me if, a neighbor starts the weed whacker or something, but I thought it would be really nice to be out here in the daylight. I thought it was going to be cloudy all evening, but there's some nice sun. So I love being out here, even when it's sweaty, hot, and muggy. I'll just put on some bug spray and paint for a couple hours, like yesterday, for example. So my art practice really starts, and it started with the idea of home. And it even carries through to today, of course, because I work from home. Part of the reason I don't have a studio that I go to is because I don't have a car. Well, my own car. Another reason is that I'm not in the market for a car, still working on that, but I've been getting around on public transit for years, ever since I started going to design and architecture senior high. So that kind of has shaped my whole art practice and the stuff my work is about. And on that note, I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. So this is a picture of me in my home studio at the time, January of 2012. So at this time I was a senior at Dash, and I was working on my portfolio for those prestigious art colleges that we were all trying to apply for. And it was a really interesting time. It was pretty fun. It was very stressful though. And I was very sleep deprived at this point. But on the left, I've got a really beautiful willow charcoal drawing. I actually sold it recently. It's called Solitude. And this is where I consider the starting point for everything that my practice today is about, which is, if I could boil it down, a sense of my identity through the lens of place, and especially home, where I live, where I reside, where I lay my head to sleep, where I store everything, probably too much stuff. And I like to explore how the external sense of home and the orientation of myself in an actual space, how that affects me emotionally, how it affects me spiritually, and how I can also shape the space, and how the space of home, which is a very private space, it's like a microcosm of what goes on inside me and what goes on inside of, I guess, everybody that lives in their space. So yes, this is 2012 me, rare photo of me with long hair. I was painting something for my dad. That was acrylics. It's, I think, some deer heads, because he likes deer heads. And if you're watching right now, Dad, I love you. These are some small drawings that I did that were supposed to just be thumbnail sketches for, I guess, bigger drawings or paintings maybe. Sometimes I start stuff and I don't really work on it or finish it until like 5 years later, and I'll get into that later. But these drawings I brought to National Portfolio Day, and I brought them to the Dash Portfolio Day, which is a day when college representatives from all over the country, and possibly other schools in Europe too, and Canada, they'll come and review the 12th graders who bring their portfolios, who've already applied to those schools, of course. And this happens in like February every school year. New World supports, well, they have their own, they usually host National Portfolio Day from what I remember. Not sure if they still do. I think they do. But Dash had their own. I don't know if the New World students have like their own day. There's a bunch of different portfolio days. But anyway, I brought these. And so these drawings, I don't know if you can tell, but these are 2 inches wide by 3 inches tall. They're very small. They're thumbnails. And they're graphite. So I had them on a really big piece of paper, but they were these very tiny things in the corner. I didn't even cut them out. I'm not sure why. I guess I lost the motivation to do that at the time. But I had a bunch of other drawings and sculptures and such, and I had them laid on the floor. And at that time, I was really, really interested in Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. So I was talking to their representative in that moment, and he was really attracted to these 5 little drawings. And he was like, these are like little precious gems. They're so detailed. These are really good. You should do more small work like this. And I was like, it's not what I expected him to say. Because you would expect, I guess, compliments about the bigger, more, the artworks in your portfolio that have more weight. They're, you spent more time on them. These were not supposed to be like the center of attention, but I found it really interesting that this guy who would have been the gateway to this school, like, really was drawn to these, and that really inspired me. I didn't end up going to the school either, by the way, and I'll talk about that too. But at this point, was an inspiration for me to continue working with small scale. And if you could see behind me earlier, I had bunch of collages and prints, but none of them they're not much bigger than a folder that you can kind of put in a purse and take with you. Most of my childhood growing up and my school career, professional career is it's not on it's on the go in a sense, because I've been using public transit as my main form of transit, of course. But in 2005, so my family had a house foreclosed on, and around 9/11, my father was also struggling to find full-time work. He was laid off. He used to be in telecom. And ever since 2005, my life hasn't really been the same, and it's very hard to describe, because I wouldn't say I was homeless, but there were many times when my family was living in other friends' houses and we were living out of bags and boxes, and I would sleep in someone's bedroom in a sleeping bag. Like if we were with a family and they had a kid, or if they had a spare room, I would sleep in the youngest kid's room or their spare room. I've slept on a cot before. Sometimes someone has a spare room with furniture and we would borrow the furniture, of course, but it was different family friends from the churches that we would go to at the time. But a lot of my childhood was growing up in other people's homes, and it was weird. Now that I look back on it, it was weird, and it's unfortunate, but it's not the worst thing ever. It's just a very strange situation to find myself in as a kid. I think I was 9 years old when we first lost a house in the Redlands that was foreclosed on. This was in Americana Village, because I was born in Orlando, and we moved to Homestead in time for me to start school. So I grew up in the Redlands, Homestead, Florida City. I grew up all around. I've lived in the Goulds, I've lived in Leisure City, I've lived in the Redlands by Avocado Drive, Campbell Drive, the BJ's down there. Right now, my family lives in a trailer that I'm going to show you in a moment. I used to live, this photo, this drawing I did of my bed, this was in a house on 288th Street in Homestead. And it's funny that I remember all those little details, but this was my first bedroom that I had to myself since I was 9 years old. So when it was in 2005, we moved from our foreclosed home to a different mobile home in some mobile home park. It wasn't a very sturdy house, because when Hurricane Wilma came in 2005, we evacuated and stayed with some friends for a week. And then when we came back, most of the houses on the little street in my neighborhood were destroyed. They were torn. Someone's roof was torn off. For our house, the whole left side, it's as if someone with a very large hand took it and just peeled it like a banana and just tore off, the side of the house. And we had the insulation from the mobile home structure was blowing around in the grass. It was a scene. It was really interesting. It impacted me a lot, but I didn't realize that until this time in high school. And then in my first year of college, 2013, that's when this house that we were staying in, we had to get out of. We were kind of being evicted, long story short. And we ended up getting a trailer, one of those caravans that you tow with the car. So this was the last house I lived in with my family. And this room was my very own. It was a storage room full of boxes, up to the ceiling. It was someone else's home that we were borrowing for a time. And for months, I begged my parents, I was like, please, let's clean this out so I can have my own room. And eventually they finally gave in. So yard saled everything away, and I got to pick a color for the wall and paint it. I picked these curtains, the bed sheets. I decided where I wanted the furniture to go. And senior year and my first year of college were spent here. And it was really nice. It was that break of solitude I really needed. So that's the origin story of kind of like who I am now, where I live now, how I live, my lifestyle. For Dash, going from Homestead in Florida City to the design district on the public transit with the yellow bus that they would pick us up with from our neighborhoods, that whole process was like 2.5 hours each morning for me, and 2.5 to 3 hours coming home. So for 4 years, I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready for the school day. And that's why I was so sleep deprived by this point. 2012, 2013, when I did these drawings, I wonder if I did these in class to keep myself awake. I really wonder. And then this photo in the corner is of me in 10th grade, more long hair. And that was a self-portrait I did. Really stressful but memorable days. So this is the trailer that my parents got. And rather than using it to go see the sights and go to the Grand Canyon, Montana, places you would normally go with these things, it's got cinder blocks and it's held in place, and it's on this plot of land that right now doesn't have concrete, but this park actually wants to put concrete in soon. This is the Boardwalk RV Resort. My parents stay there, and they pay next to nothing for rent. They've got a little awning. This is a painting I did in 2014, as you can see. I was going to Miami-Dade College at this time, and I tried painting plein air. It was very fun. It was just acrylics, though. And then I sold this to my aunt. So thank you, Aunt M. And I had forgotten about this painting, honestly, but for this talk, I really wanted to, I asked her if she could send me a nice photo of it. So this was her photo. She lives in Orlando. She's had this for 6 years now, I think. This painting's 6 years old. It's so crazy to see like the old photo and just taking it in for myself. I'm not sure what you guys see or think, but a lot has changed from just this scene. Like my mom put in a little garden on the left side. There's a little welcome sign. They've got a house number. It's lot 706, and they have a little sign out front. They've got 2 cars now instead of 1. So this spot, the angle from which I painted this, is a parking spot. So now there's like a car parked there. There's less Tupperware because my parents have been cleaning stuff out and yard sailing everything. They actually have a storage unit in the back behind this little picnic table. There's like a pod storage unit. That's my dog. We had a rat terrier growing up, and she passed away, I think 3 years ago. Her name was Zoe Girl. I don't know what it is about. I love looking at these old paintings and old photos, and I think this is why I really like documenting just my home and my living situation and the surroundings around me as I go through life, as time goes on, because I know I'm very young, but 6 years is kind of a lot for me. And even like from 2012, 8 years ago, a lot has changed. And it's just really, it's breathtaking to me to look back on a snapshot of the present at that time, which is now in the past. But it's breathtaking because I remember it as if it was yesterday, and it's still a part of me. Even though I have changed a lot, it's still a part of me. But like deep down in my soul. It's part of me, and it doesn't often display itself to people except through my art, I guess. But yeah, it's just, I guess it's nostalgia too. I just love seeing this old stuff. I'm going to do another version of this. I'm going to go to my parents' house and take another photo and like do another painting 5 years later, 6 years later. I think that would be really interesting. So around that point, I was at Miami-Dade College for 2 years, and then I went to FIU and got my BFA, and that is all of my education. But at this point at Miami-Dade College, I was going to the Homestead campus, which I loved my time there. It was so fun. It was really homey, and everyone was a little strange, but they were all very like outgoing and wanted to know about you and wanted to know what you were up to, and not just your art, but they were like very friendly, warm people. And I can't really say the same for FIU, unfortunately. Had a very different experience. It's a really big school too. So I think I just like smaller things. But in January of 2015, I had my first solo exhibition, which is really funny and cute looking back on. So the vice mayor, Stephen Shelley, at the time, he had a program called Artists in the Spotlight that started in 2010. I don't know if it still goes on. That'd be really cool if it did. But it was once a month they wanted to have an exhibit to showcase local artists of Homestead. And I pretty much just put up college and high school work. I mean, that's all I had at the time. It was at the William F. Dickinson Community Center, which is in historic Homestead on Chrome Avenue. And then I had a few pieces in the Historic Town Hall Museum. But I made a few like posters for social media. And this was another drawing I did from back in high school. Before I lived in the trailer, I had a vanity, and I was obsessed with this like vanity that I had. It was black and it had little gold, excuse me. Hopefully that's FedEx. I had a big black vanity dresser with a big mirror and nice gold trim and gold handles. And I was in love with it. I don't know why. I think it was the aesthetic. It was just this idea that I had a place where I could put all my crap and all my little belongings and my makeup and bookmarks and burn incense like I have here, all my earrings, just odds and ends. I guess kind of like making an assemblage on my vanity. There was something just really nice about the privilege to have enough space to have a surface where you could just put all of your crap and not have to worry about cleaning it every day. I don't know. I named it Shrine. This is oil pastel on paper, which I don't think I've used oil pastel since then. But maybe I should, because I'm very fond of this drawing now that I look at it. And this was the opening night of my show. I'm super happy, as you can see. And I thought it was really nice to find these photos of me like giddy and excited. This is how I look right now. I also gave a really quick talk about my art to the City Council of Homestead. Very cool. I don't remember what I said. This was pretty short, but notice on the podium, there's these 3 little paintings that I did. These are gouache paintings. They're on like a canvas pad. It's like a fabric paper that kind of feels like a canvas texture. And I'm going to talk about these more later because I've worked on these for years. Believe it or not, the exact same paintings. It's so funny. I've worked on them since 2015 or 2014, I guess. It's 2015. Yeah. But I've worked on them in the sense that I've repeated this motif. That was the word. I was going to say memento, but it's not exactly it. I've repeated this motif of like straight on shots of doors and windows. This is a little more recent, and you'll see. But I've repeated this motif in my prints, my collages, my paintings. And it's kind of like, of course, documentary, but it's also like a portrait. And I've always loved doing portraits and self-portraits and profile and the 3/4 and just sketching and drawing people. I've always been really good at it too, even when I was beginning in, I think, middle school. In 8th grade, I started. I was like 12 or 13 when I started drawing portraits from life. And it was my mom that suggested I did. So thank you, Mom, for that. But yeah, ever since then, portraiture has secretly been like my favorite hobby. And I think that kind of comes through in these little paintings. And as you'll see, some more art that I've made more recently, there's like a straight on documentary, not documentary, like just pure documentation, because they're not photographically perfect. But I think what I like about painting from life, drawing from life, painting things as they are in this moment with all the details, it has to do with mindfulness, and it has to do with being in the present, and something that like arrests me, that I have to document, I have to capture it and remember it, and I have to spend time with it, which I really, I'll admit, even as an artist, I don't do that enough. I need to do that more. It's always good to be as mindful as you can be in the present. It's very hard for me because if y'all know Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ type. So my introverted intuition, it's a cognitive ability that I'm supposed to be very strong in, which means I'm really good at kind of noticing patterns in everything and synthesizing them, kind of projecting what the future is going to look like, expectation-wise. So it means I spend a lot of time in my head and in the past and in the future and in my imagination and what ifs and lots of, you know, the good and the light and the dark of what it means to be in your own head and letting your imagination run. So for me, I can't get enough of being in the present. So as a mixed media artist, I've tried a lot of different things. I've done video, I've done animation, installation, which you'll see at the very end here. But I keep coming back to just drawing, painting, collage, printmaking, just for the most part, 2-dimensional, like very intensive, like labor intensive, requiring these observation skills that I don't think I'm that strong at, to be honest, but it's what's good for me. I think that's why I keep doing it and why I keep coming back to it, because I don't want to lose that hand done, that draftsmanship kind of skill that I taught myself and I learned at Dash. It was reinforced, and I didn't end up going to PAFA or any of the schools that I applied to because of course, money issues as usual. And on that note, I'm going to say really quick, I could have applied for scholarships, and I did, but for the cost of the school at the time, I guess it was my INFJ projection into my future. I did not want to pay any debt, and I didn't want to have to take out loans. There's no way my family could have helped me financially. So the way I saw it, I was like, I don't want any debt. I'm not going to spend, $20,000 every year for something that I could get for $150 at Miami-Dade. So for me, that was the choice I made. And I felt like God was calling me to stay here in Miami for one, and stay local and just, explore Miami more in a sense and see what's around me and see what it's really like to be here and live here and learn here. And that decision, I'm glad I followed, and I'm glad I did it, because I wouldn't be the same person I am today if I went away for school. And sometimes I think about what it would have been like for my art career if I did, but I'm really happy right now. I'm really happy with the choices I made. I feel at peace. So I'm going to keep doing what makes me happy and what makes me feel at peace and like I'm walking in my own path. And I forgot where I was going from there. But basically, I keep coming back to the handmade art styles because there's just something, I like the traditionality of it. I like how simple it is, too. It's easy to store. Installations are very hard to store. I'm cutting costs at every chance I get. I would like to save for a car, for example, but right now I have a bike. I've got a very cute folding bike. I don't know if you saw it earlier in the background, but I cut costs everywhere. I'm saving like crazy. I saved most of my refunds from school, didn't really touch them. I just put them into savings because I don't have anyone else helping me, honestly, with money. And I try to, as idealistic as I am, I try to be realistic and think about how realistic would it be if I just left everything I knew, went to Philadelphia. I don't know how expensive it is to rent an apartment there, but what if I did that? And I'm very particular about like roommates, so I wouldn't want to be with a total stranger. And then what if I didn't find a job there? And then what if a scholarship couldn't be maintained? Like there's just so many what ifs. I just decided to stay here, be more practical. At least I know my way around Miami. And moving from Homestead to Miami, like the closer to the city, that was actually a world of change in itself. So at this point in 2015, I had met my current husband, my one and only, my first husband. I think he's watching right now, so I love you. But at the time, I was getting to know him more as a friend before we were dating, and he's an art teacher, actually, so he gave me kind of this cute assignment for myself because I had mentioned wanting to get into collage, and he also likes collage. So he gave me kind of like a quote-unquote assignment, and he gave me some parameters for like try doing collages at 3 inches by 5 inches, and try there were a couple of rules. I actually found the little piece of paper that I wrote them on a few years ago, and I want to show you that. I think I have a video right here next. Oh, no, it's right after this. So this is the little collage slide. So these are some collages that I made in February of 2015. So he wanted me to try to do one a day for a year. Wasn't able to do that, but I did like 40 or 50 collages, and these were all index card sized. He wanted me to do like a minimum of 6 things in the collage, and this was brand new to me, but it was super, super fun. And as you can see, I really tried to do the one a day. I was trying to do them on the bus too. I would bring glue and kind of just tear stuff and work on the bus on the way to him, because I would take the public bus from my place to go see him. And yeah, it was really interesting. And so at this time, I'm going to show a video. It's a very short video, but it's me in 2015 talking about my art practice at the time, and especially collaging. My friend Diana Moon did the video for me. So if you're watching, Diana, thank you so much. I think I inspired her to do collage because a couple months after I started, she was also doing collage, and she would send them to me and then put them on Instagram. And now she's really big, and she's on Patreon, and she's got a big fan base. So it's awesome to have people that inspire you and you inspire them. And it's all love and happiness. Okay, let's play that video now. I don't think art can be very novel or very innovative or very monumental anymore unless it's very personal. It has to have your unique fingerprint and your experiences, and not only does it make it more human, but that's how you can personally connect with others. So I would like to use my art as a conduit between me and other people that are maybe really searching for something to fulfill them. I make 3x5-inch collages and I take them everywhere. Take all the cutting supplies everywhere just in case I have a down moment to work. The first time I did these small collages was actually an idea given to me by my boyfriend because he's an art teacher. So he said, I want you to try to make a collage one a day for a year. I wasn't able to return to the one a day project, but I kept the format mainly because it's portable, it's small. There's been a huge dilemma with me regarding art classes, like how do I carry a sculpture on the bus? I've arrived at the conclusion that small is the best way to go for now, but I like the intimacy of the scale. It asks you to draw in and look at the details and look at the cuts and the way the paint is done. Find little things like a little I Spy book. It would be nice to start making them look as messy as I want them to look, but I want to retain the minimal aesthetic. But I like the idea of finding stuff on the street. I haven't paid for art supplies in months, so all this stuff is part of my life, like a leaf or a dirty coin or this flyer for a band. I'll find a way to recontextualize it, so maybe it looks like a map in a collage instead of the object itself. So I like the intimacy, the portability. It embodies my nomadic lifestyle. I feel like a nomad. I've felt like a nomad for years, starting from just financial misfortune with my family, the lack of employment from my parents' end. We've lost so many homes, stayed with countless friends. I've lived out of boxes for years, so I have an affinity for boxes.
All she had left was a boyfriend, a Bobby D.
I'm thinking about how a nomadic lifestyle affects the psyche, how your temporal condition, your physical condition, your living space, how that affects you emotionally and spiritually. Also about how you can manifest your personal identity, who you are, how that manifests in your home. I'm bearing my soul in my work. I don't see why I should be doing it if I'm not bearing my soul. I want to use it to have fellowship with people, fellowship with man.
She was my Joan Baez singing, and I.
Okay. All right, everybody. I just noticed a bunch of questions, so I'm going to try to answer your questions. Whoops. Give me one moment. My chat just disappeared again. Okay. That's interesting. My chat disappeared. Oh. I see. Okay. Okay. Lots of questions. So from inboxes 19, would you say that your environment, living quarters, and or nature around you influences or informs the work you make? If so, how and why? It definitely does. Definitely does. That's a very, I feel like that's a really loaded question. There's so much I could say to that. My environment does influence and it does inform my work. I feel like the sense of home is the primary thing that drives my work. My sense of home, if I feel like I have that sense or not, because I don't always have, or I haven't always had that sense. Some places feel more like home than other places, and sometimes home is a more like internal assurance or an internal feeling or a relationship you have with someone. So I feel like that's the main influence in my work, but environment does influence me. I think it's influencing me more now because I've been living here with my husband for a couple years now. So I'm staying put finally. It feels like finally I'm in a sense at home finally. So I'm paying more attention to this environment. It's also a really beautiful environment. It's like a big Hayao Miyazaki jungle out here. It's really pretty. And maybe I should do more like nature paintings or nature journaling, but I love the architecture of this neighborhood I live in and the architecture of this space. So I'm still kind of like analyzing that, and I take it in every day and I find it really beautiful. So a lot of my work, a lot of prints I've been doing lately, a lot of paintings too, are of my landlord's, the doors to her different, the sides of her house. She's got like 3 entrances on her house. We have our own entrance. My neighbors have this really pretty red door with bright green leaves all around it that I always find really enchanting. It's almost like otherworldly. So I try to capture that when I paint the doors. But yeah, I think environment is affecting me more now because I'm more like, I have time to take it in because I've been staying put here. And thank you everyone for all the compliments too. I feel like I'm short on time though, so I'm gonna go through questions. Mainly, what is your dream project from Morel Doucet? If materials and funding were not a problem? It's a good question. I should think about that more. There was my BFA installation. That was my final project for my BFA at FIU. That was a really interesting, it was inspired by, I was looking at a lot of artists like Mark Dion, Joseph Kossuth, Joseph Beuys, of course some other ones, of course Duchamp, Marcel Proust or Bruthaers, I can't remember his name, but I was looking at a lot of people that were, I think the genre of art is called institutional critique, where it has to do with artists critiquing the museum and the spaces that show the art. So I was trying to take that aesthetic, excuse that, I was trying to take that look, this very like clean museum kind of presentation look, and I wanted to show the history of the word curate. I've always been fascinated with the word curate, and I'm still trying to figure out why, honestly, but I think it has to do with like curating as this a way to, I guess, help reinforce your identity or find your identity. And people like curate their homes, they curate their social media, everything is curated these days, and it has to be because there's so much media coming at us. But so I explored the etymology of the word. I went to the Latin root. I made these etchings. Most were laser etched, although I started by hand, and I was etching different definitions of the word as it has changed in meaning throughout history. And so I went to like curates from the church, like the Catholic Church, Anglican Church, Lutheran Church. There's like curadores, there's priests, there's procurators, especially from ancient Rome. That's the best example I can think of a procurator as like a prefect for a district, a prefect for a district who would kind of handle the revenue of the state, and he would handle taxes and collect that and send it to the emperor. So I was looking at different uses of that word throughout time and how it's changed and trying to see if there was a common thread in all of those. So my dream project, I guess, would be to finish that because I don't feel like it was ever finished. And I would probably, I've always wanted to do something like Mark Dion style and get a really big, nice vitrine and just collect like old stuff and old medical kits and the cassocks from priests. And I didn't grow up Catholic, so it's slipping my mind the name of the guy that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Those robes and the cassocks and the little collars that the priests have. I've wanted to collect those different iterations of like the different garb that everyone wears and like display them and kind of have it all together as like an anthology or a big encyclopedia of the word curate. And I had a t-shirt from the Wolfsonian that said curator on it. And I found these little snacks that were called curate, and I took those little wrappers and I showed them, and I had collages of stuff I found on the internet, different ways the word curate has been used. So I kind of wanted to, my dream project would be to compile all of those in a really big display that's very like Wunderkammer looking. And that would be nice. It'd be nice to see that one day. All right. Do I have time for one more question? I hope so. There's a lot of questions. Ooh, it's a good one. Let's see. Why doors? Does it represent an entryway into some sort of identity or different identities? Maybe so. Why doors? Doors are just really like inviting, I guess. They're very, like, at least the ones here in Shenandoah, I used to think doors just came with the house, and like not a lot of people in Homestead decorate their doors, but the ones in my neighborhood here are really beautiful. They're all different colors. People put different types of like stained glass in them. Not this door, but they'll put different shapes of, like, I see birds, herons, butterflies, plants, abstract designs. People put, decorations and statues and all kinds of stuff around their front door. So it's kind of just like, look at me. It's like a centerpiece on a necklace. It draws the eye in. I guess it's like the main aspect, the main attraction. Can't think of the right word. The main part, it's like looking at the eyes on a person. It's like it draws you in. It's the focal point. That's what I wanted to say. It's the focal point, and it says a lot. I think it says a lot about the person who lives there. And they're just really pretty. It's like painting portraits of people, I think. And I think that's all the time I have. So thank you for listening to my whole talk. I know I rambled a lot, but I'm just really excited and really happy. And it was such a pleasure to have all of you guys with me. And I would love to have y'all here one day, hopefully after the quarantine. And I really mean that. I'm very hospitable. I will serve you tea. We'll listen to records. I love like inviting people into my home now that I have one. And it's like full circle. Like I want to just give back to the way other people have been generous with me. So if that's all the time I have, one more question, short response. All right. I think I'm all good. Thank you, everyone. Please have a great rest of your quarantine, and keep checking my Instagram if you have my Instagram. I post stuff every day. I try. And please keep supporting local artists. Keep watching Local Views every Thursday. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.